Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Monday. You back? Monday, October 27th, 2025. Time to start this cycle all over again. Donald Trump's still out of the country, thank God. Not that he's not making a mess of things, because he keeps flying around places, and flying around places means a press gaggle, and press gaggle more or less means unsupervised time to babble and say things that are crazy. And the Trump press loves to lap it up, then I guess do their best to sane wash it, turn it into something less nonsensical, I guess, and print it in presumably the most favorable light. Although, to be honest, a lot of ink spilled lately over. Maybe he's not altogether entirely there, but the press not really pushing back in the ways that would count, and certainly not writing any books and releasing any books, and therefore promoting the idea that something ought to be done the way they did with Biden, and the amount of time that got spent on Biden's mental condition after he was out of office, by the way. But never mind all of that. You know, the priorities of the press are turned upside down, well, by economic factors. The economy drives a lot of things. It's the economy, stupid, is what I'm telling you. When the reporters can write books and cash in and get the big payday, I mean, that motivates everybody. And it's motivating all of these guys as well. I mean, it was well past time to be talking about or spending that much time on Biden's mental state, because he was no longer president, but the book, you see. And everybody wants to know what the reporters found out, although we're also increasingly finding out what the reporters know. That's very important, and you only find it out, after the fact, or when there's nothing you can do about it. And I mean, that has to do with publication schedules, of course, as well. But yeah, it is odd how they tend to keep this information secret. Jonathan Karl, I guess, has a fourth Trump book out. I think the number was 4. And he, too, once again, long after the fact where it's relevant, reveals something that Jonathan Karl has known this whole time, but you haven't. I think the story this time, the promotional story anyway, of it is that his new book depends greatly on never before published notes, private notes kept by Mike Pence, if you remember that guy, about the January 6th insurrection. And I don't know what to tell you. It's now revealed that Mike Pence really didn't feel all that good about what was going on, and that Donald Trump was really actually quite bad about what was going on. And it's newsworthy, certainly, in that, you should know these things eventually. And apparently the twist on this story is that this is information that was available and would have been used and entered into evidence in whatever trial Jack Smith was able to bring forward on the January 6th charges against Donald Trump. But of course, that all those charges were dropped and the case dismissed because he became president again, magically. And that's the end of holding anybody accountable, apparently. No accountability for presidents of the United States. That is what our founders intended. Hooray! What a great system. So anyway, we're finding out more about that. Trump is, I guess this counts as trotting around in small circles in a different part of the globe. So he's gone. He's overseas. That's usually a nice break. They keep him busy during the day with things that they call meetings. And mostly we don't hear from him until the evenings when he retires back to the airplane, which, by the way, I'm not even sure where he's staying when he's overseas. He's got a weird thing about he only wants to stay in his own hotel properties, but he doesn't own any hotels in Malaysia or Japan. And he's been holding a lot of his meetings on board Air Force One, which I found interesting and maybe even a little bit unusual or weird. And I'm wondering whether he's sleeping there as well, whether he's insisting on doing that. I haven't seen much. It doesn't seem like a super important item, so I guess I can excuse them not covering that. But if he is doing that, it does seem like it's a little bit strange, and we ought to know about it. All right. Well, there's a million other things we ought to know about, too. All of these things are happening. The big news, top of the headlines today, as far as I'm concerned, is that, it's so good, it deserves extra special music. The bathroom, not mine, but Greg Dworkin's, the bathroom is finished. And you should see pictures of these inspiring homescapes. I can see them. And that's inspired me to go classical here. I'm not even done. There should be more, but all right, we'll have to cut it off at this point. So Greg Dworkin is here and ready to tell you all about the renovation. Looks good, Greg. Doesn't sound quite as much. I don't hear.
Well,
okay.
Ready is a relative term.
Yes, right.
Right. On time is when I get there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Pushing the button, whatever. That could be.
But I personally feel that the proper intro to the bathroom being finished is the very beginning of Thus Spake Zarathustra. Like in 2001.
Yeah, very similar in the sentiment. Yeah, I don't think we have that one.
Dramatic, slow motion.
Yes.
But yeah, it's done. And I have to tell you, the construction and renovation crew, who were fantastic throughout all of this, who listened to the show, are going to be really disappointed because, now that it's finished, we're not really going to be talking about that too much.
Well, we can work it in. I mean, we can have daily updates.
We will work in it because it's got some life stories to do.
That's right.
Particularly about tariffs. So, I want to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Also, contractors should be on the lookout for a call for proposals for the ballroom, which I assume is next, because you've been trying that for 150 years, and only you can do it.
Well, what about if it's this old house renovation project to redo the east wing?
Right. Yeah. Start from scratch. Really.
Yeah. Make it look like the Weatherby farmhouse, like on this old house.
Tear it all down and
start over again. And then put it back up the way it was.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've seen pictures. Everyone has heard me say that I've seen them. So
well, I've seen them too. It looks really nice in the morning light. So it came out great. I'm really happy. And what I'm really happy is everything. The door installer for the shower was kind enough to show up yesterday, Sunday, and say, "Hey, I picked up the glass. Do you want me to put it in tonight?"
Sure.
So he came over Sunday night for an hour and a half. And, it's a Sunday and things are going on. So he actually, he had to pick up his daughter at a party and brought her. So she came over to the house. We gave her milk and cookies while he was working. It must have been
some party.
It's a small, it's a small town. And, it all worked out great. And so it takes 24 hours to dry. So tonight we can actually inaugurate the shower, which should be really nice.
Okay.
However, it costs more than we thought because tariffs. And that's the life lesson. When you get estimates, they are just estimates.
Right. Yeah. And now, of course, honestly, the tariff can change during the course when you're considering the estimate, or let alone the building time.
This was a 6-week project, and the
tariff changed 9 times.
Price fluctuations, for example, of the tile that went on the wall and the floor changed dramatically during that time.
I can well imagine.
It's hard to keep up.
All right.
But, just as estimations of how much things are going to cost is just an estimate. Polls are just an estimate. So let's start today by talking about Virginia polling.
They could change while we're talking.
It could change while we're talking because there's 3 more in the field that I know of. This one happens to be from a group called A2 Insights. I don't know much about them. But I do know that they claim that Trump approval in Virginia is 55 disapprove and approve 44.
I now know something
include,
about them.
Decimal points. Always suspect when you include decimal points. 55.2 for disapprove, 44.2 approve, but you'll see why the decimal point's important in a moment. Governor Youngkin approval, and I've been fascinated to follow this. Remember, there was the one poll that actually showed he was underwater. This one has him at 5146.5. And without going into the crosstabs and the bowels of the poll and all of this sort of thing, I use Youngkin approval as a surrogate for how Republican is this sample.
Yeah, okay.
The more Republican the sample, the higher Youngkin's approval is going to be. I don't understand why he's positive approval, but if you have a Republican sample, it's going to be.
Yes.
Okay, so in this particular poll, Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, 53.6, Winsome Earl Sears, 45.5, so it's a less than double-digit lead, which you'd expect looking at the governor approval.
Yeah.
You'd think it was a slightly Republican sample compared to what's actually going to show up.
Sure.
Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares, 48.6, Jay Jones, 48.0. So even in the slightly Republican sample, it's a tie.
Yeah.
And you can't tell the difference between 48.6 and 48.0, which is why you really shouldn't include it. Call this 49-48. Virginia, and that means there's very few undecided. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Hashmi, the Democrat, 53, John Reed, 45. So this particular poll, which I don't necessarily buy into, has the lieutenant governor and the governor doing the same, less than double digits, and a tie for attorney general. And by the way, the same company has a New Jersey poll with Mikey Sherrill at 51 and Jack Citarelli at 46.5. So is Spanberger only slightly better than Mikey Sherrill in terms of how the performance is going to be? We'll see. Like I said, I think it's a little bit Republican leaning. However, keep in mind, Chas Nuttycomb's state Navigate poll is out in the field right now.
Right.
Atlas Intel is in the field right now. And perhaps the best known quantity of the Virginia polls, Christopher Newport University is out in the field right now.
Yeah.
That's the Wason Center. So we're very anxious to see what that poll shows.
Okay, let's find out. Oh, no, we can't. We have to wait.
State Navigate says Jay Jones still has about a 75% chance of winning, even though it's very, very close. He's the one
I helped.
It's a 50-50 in my mind. And it's not that much difference between 50-50 and 75-25. There's just not much difference. What matters here is Spanberger's margin.
Yes.
Gets closer to double digits, Jones wins. And then the other factor is because Miyares is way outspending Jones in terms of advertising, which you could tell us about. You live there. The other side is how much ticket splitting or wasted ballots are there, whatever they're called, when you don't fill out the entire thing. I voted for Spanberger, but I hate everybody for Attorney General not voting.
Yeah. That could happen. Like lower information voters who just say, I've never heard, I didn't even know we voted for these positions. I've heard
despite the fact that it's wall-to-wall TV advertising and you can't look at anything else and not see it.
Yes, that's why I don't look at anything. The advertising has broken through for me. Even I can't even escape it online. I haven't been watching a great deal of broadcast television, mostly because it's actually difficult to do now. I got to go out of my way to do it. But targeted online advertising. Watch something on YouTube. There has been wall to wall.
Gee, that's so weird because you're getting Virginia political ads.
Yes.
And I'm getting bathroom fixtures for some reason.
They're listening to the show. Well, your phone is listening to you, certainly, and telling you what you or maybe Grok is telling you what you need.
No, my phone is listening because it keeps trying to give me a camera that my monitor doesn't have, and I'm just not interested.
Every time you say
telling
that,
it not to.
Right.
So this is a story from Politico today.
Yeah.
Voters are about to speak. What they say might not end the shutdown. Statewide elections in New Jersey and Virginia are being closely watched, but seem unlikely to break the Washington impasse. So we have the New York City election, we have the two governor elections, plus other stuff in Virginia, and people are watching those three very closely. Yes. We expect Democratic wins in all three places. The margin of victory isn't going to change anything. That's a really important thing to know. As far as any effect that the Virginia race may have on the shutdown, it's all talking points. Like, for example, if Spanberger wins by 12, then obviously it's because Northern Virginia hates Trump and the tariffs really matter.
Well, okay.
If Spanberger wins by 7, and not 12.
Uh-huh. Oh.
The same talking point.
Oh, okay. I mean, good. I would say the same thing anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So James
So what does this
Walkinshaw,
tell us?
Democrat, who represents the Washington suburbs,
The brand new guy.
one of the newest Democrats, if not
Who was
the newest
sworn in
Democrat, because
right after he got
Adelita
elected.
Grijalva hasn't been sworn in yet.
Right.
I don't think any Democrats here are looking at the shutdown in the context of the margin of victory in Virginia, he said. He predicted a Democratic victory, and that could force Republicans to change course, not his own party. So the only effect it could have is help us, which, that's why you elected him as a Democrat. About time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, right. So he was replacing Jerry Connolly, for those keeping score at home, like literally with a scorecard, and you need to make that substitution.
Speaking of scorecard, yeah, you'll need a scorecard to remember which party this guy is. But Jeff Van Drew says, and he's from South Jersey, the shutdown will have at most a tiny tangential effect in his state.
New Jersey, like in the election.
Yeah.
Okay. Like as opposed
and his state overall.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's.
But remember, whatever party he's from or used to be from, he's still a jerk.
Yeah. He thinks right. He's, I'm a rich guy and I don't use the government.
Sure. Well, the whole thing. I was listening to a very interesting piece on NPR this morning, trying to figure out what kind of effect tariffs have on the electorate. And they were basically, I can't give you the link because it was just audible, audio.
You were just listening to the regular
I will
radio.
Tomorrow.
You didn't record everything?
Like the real radio. And they pointed out the tariffs are weird because although most people like having more money in their wallet,
yes, that's right.
Tariffs bring in another psychological thing that other ways of decreasing the money in your pocket do, and that is tariffs make you feel better than the guy you're screwing, supposedly. In other words, if you have this tough guy mentality, talk about it. Look, I know the tariffs are making it hard for you, and I got a real long piece after the break probably about Nebraska farmers and how they're suffering. But I know it's making it hard for you, but you have to remember, we are putting it to those people taking advantage of us, and you're a tough guy, and this needs to be done. And that kind of psychology mitigates the feeling that, well, but I don't have any money to some people.
Yeah. People
as opposed to no people.
Some more money.
If you simply raise prices, no people are affected by trying to talk them into it's good for you. But with tariffs, you have some small degree of I don't like getting screwed over, but as long as that other guy is getting screwed over worse is a real thing.
Well, I mean, people say they feel it, but it is
I understand that they're getting rid of food stamps, and I'm on them. SNAP, it's called these days.
Yeah.
But all those city people are losing more than I am, so I can bear with it a little bit. That's the kind of mentality. Does that matter? Well, some people still continue to vote against their interests because of it, so I guess it does.
Okay. Bad person. Bad.
In any case, the disconnect between the standoff in Washington and the attitudes of voters could scramble how the off-year elections are interpreted. Typically, they're seen as bellwethers for presidents and their parties. But you can't do that these days because if Democrats win, you can't say it's bad for Republicans. That's the subtext here.
No, it's all a mistake if that happens.
It doesn't scramble it. If the Democrats do really well, it matters. Duh.
Okay. I mean,
but we won't have access to Republicans if we say that. So we have to put it in terms
they won't
that
matter
they can
as
understand it. Listen, we're Politico. We do gossip. So the disconnect between the standoff in Washington and the attitudes of voters could scramble how the off-year elections are interpreted by us.
Okay. Now that I believe. I believe you could get it wrong. Sure. You might try to blame it on something like that. But
you will. It's possible there could be a split result in the two races.
Ooh,
Democrats see the shutdown and the Trump administration's mass layoffs in Virginia, where Spanberger is banking on a Trump backlash.
Yeah.
But Trump has been a major factor in New Jersey.
How
and
so?
People don't like the Democrat, Phil Murphy.
Oh.
So we'll see.
All right. Well, you know what he's not doing this time? Running.
Right.
So, well.
On the other hand, forget about tariffs for a moment. Obamacare sticker shock begins as open enrollment meets shutdown deadlock. So here's another shutdown story
Yes.
that has impact, but it's not tariffs, and therefore it's only Republicans specifically and not Trump. Therefore, you're allowed to talk about it.
Ah, all right. Very good. Let's do it.
If somehow there's a deal done ahead of November 1st, says The Hill, which looks
No way.
unlikely, states and the federal government may still have time to incorporate enhanced subsidies into the prices, but Republicans have made it clear there'll need to be changes to the tax credit before they even entertain an extension, and policy changes will only increase the headaches for state-level Obamacare administrators, said Jessica Altman, executive director of Covered California. If there's going to be a big policy conversation about marketplace affordability, too late for 2026. Okay, in other words, this is leopard face-eating party. You voted for it. It's about time you get your face eaten because of it, and maybe it'll sink in. We're not rescuing you. And that's the whole attitude that Democrats are taking with the shutdown, by the way. It's not typically one you want all the time, but in this particular case, go for it.
I guess so. All right. Last chance to, I guess, stock up on antibiotics to help fight the leopard bites.
Right. And if that's not the reason why you think that this particular president is unpopular, whether it's demolishing the historically important East Wing of the White House, perhaps it's this while he's on his safari. And by the way, I think he's staying either on his plane or at a McDonald's.
It could have that portable McDonald's that they fly around with. It might have been gifted to him by the Saudis.
Yeah. Blue Virginia writes, yep, our president is stark raving mad. That's undeniable. And he can't spell hepatitis, Hepatitas, and all caps. What does he say? Pregnant women, don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. This is dated 10/26/25 at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots.
Do that at
home.
Take
chicken pox shot separately. Take hepatitis B shot at 12, not as a baby. That's wrong. All of this advice is wrong.
Well, yes.
Or older, and importantly, take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits.
What are you talking about? How can you even do that?
I don't know. The whole thing is so stupid. I just laughed when I said, the only response to this is let's hope Trump is taking his advice from RFK, his medical advice from RFK Jr.
Yeah, right.
Instead of Ronnie Jackson.
It could be that he can't understand the advice he's getting. Because break up a shot. I've never shot. I don't understand what he just said, but I think he just said I don't know. All right. Why is Tylenol not suing his ass off? I have no idea. I guess they figured, someone probably told them, you can't sue the president. It's in the Constitution. Okay. No, it isn't.
Corporations are not woke.
No.
One cannot depend on corporations to fight for money? American values.
Wouldn't
like
you
capitalism.
To have money? Sure. Apparently not an issue for them. Okay. That's quite odd. I don't, and I like that his home remedy advice is break up the MMR shot. Just take it home to your chemistry lab, separate it out somehow, and administer it yourself. It's not available separately. You can't separate it. Manufacturers aren't about to try to separate it for you. So,
right.
Whatever.
But the
Man-woman
title of today's Pundit
TV.
Roundup was "Presidential Temper Tantrums Make Things Worse."
All right.
There's one example. Another, of course, is that he saw a Ronald Reagan ad that Ontario, province of Ontario, put out, and therefore decided to declare tariff war on Canada, stupid as that may sound.
They're so close.
And I want to set this up. I'd like you to play a video. It's not too long.
All right. We don't have
less than a minute and a half. And it's from a very famous movie, and it's a very famous scene. And I immediately recognized the scene, the actor, the situation, but I had forgotten what the subject matter was, because that really wasn't important to the plot.
All right.
In fact, I
was ready.
In not remembering the subject matter, was just like all the other high school kids listening to these teachers drone on.
Sure. Okay, I got it for you. We'll play it
in
here.
1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the Anyone?
The
Great Depression.
I remember that.
Passed the
Look at that face, kids.
Anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs. in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government.
That's at least a legitimate reason.
Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
Like these
Today,
kids.
we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before?
What is it?
Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue.
Sleeping, drooling student.
As at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980?
Vice President
Anyone?
Gee whiz.
Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
That's right. I remember all of that. Okay.
I love to sneak in a...
And there's an unpaid ad. Go away, unpaid ad. And it's very loud, too.
Yes. I had completely forgotten what the subject matter was of that really boring lecture.
Forgotten that? Okay.
And it was all about tariffs.
Tariffs. And, yeah. Well, back when we indoctrinated our children, we taught them things like tariffs actually get
Well, see, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you look at that, I'm sorry, there is simply no way you can make the case Ben Stein is woke.
Yeah, no.
You can't.
Very difficult.
Any more than you can make the case that he was interesting.
He was a good actor.
He's a great actor.
Yeah, and what a character.
Terrible on politics, but great on acting.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think that was his actual self. So maybe that's
well, let's just say dry.
He's a method
and call it that, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah, right. Now, of course, there are Heritage Foundation, quote-unquote, scholars who are out there trying to reverse all of that. All the things. But it was that common, because it was true. It was generally accepted as true. Everyone had that lesson. The guys at the Heritage Foundation think that was all wrong and that tariffs are really great.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. What were we talking about? Yes, tariffs. Back in the, I will say about that clip from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That was meant to show. To establish a baseline of commonality with the audience. Oh, yeah, I have had exactly the same sort of reaction to the boring history lectures and everything. But this, in order for this scene to be relatable at all, it A, had to be boring and dry, but B, had to be something like, oh, yeah, I think I remember maybe something about blah, 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 tariffs, Smoot-Hawley, etc. They really, I mean, I don't know how much history lessons people really remember from high school, but yeah, I mean, general consensus for 50 years that raising tariffs heading into a depression in particular sent the economy into a tailspin. Things are more complicated certainly now, but I mean, baseline remains tariffs make prices go up. And also, by the way, Ben Stein reminding us that the idea was to raise more revenue without raising income taxes, I guess, and that was the reason that they went ahead and did things that way. But no mention of, and for good reason, there's no academic studies on how do we do using tariffs to settle petty or imaginary disputes with other countries that are not angry with us, but the president is in outer space. No one has ever studied that effect yet. But I guess if the conflicts are imaginary, who cares whether the tariffs work or not? The only thing that really determines what you're going to do is whether the president comes out of his stupor or not.
Well, it's all about looking tough. It's not actually accomplishing
How does it even
anything.
work? Yeah, okay.
Right.
All he's doing is making trouble.
That's all in there. This is a note from Greg Sargent at TNR, in the other ways that Trump likes to talk tough, but that doesn't think through the consequences. This is Trump nixing of Democratic state disaster aid backfires, screwing MAGA voters, and points out there was some approving federal disaster aid for Nebraska, North Dakota, Missouri, and Alaska, denying it to blue states of Maryland, Vermont, and Illinois, but also in Maryland, the disasters and damage severely afflicted the state's westernmost counties.
Oh, yeah.
Allegheny and Garrett County. They happen to be in Appalachia.
Yes.
Appalachia. Deep in Trump country. Both voted for Trump by 40 points. We talked to MSNBC Steve Bannon about it. And the selective approach doesn't always work because he doesn't really think through what it is he's doing. And it comes when it comes to tariffs, one of the places that's most affected by all of this, of course, is the Midwest. Now, this is a Charlie Sykes piece talking about his new tariffs on Canada because he's angry. A reminder, Donald Trump is no Ronald Reagan. And again, I don't hold up Reagan as an icon or a North Star or something to place your look, Reagan did it, therefore it's okay.
Yeah. No.
The point is there's many, many, many conservatives who are not MAGA. And of those conservatives, many of them still think Reagan was a pretty good president and like his policies. And you could scratch the surface of a never-Trumper and find feelings like that. So it's no surprise Charlie Sykes is writing about it.
Okay.
But what he points out, how thin-skinned is the uber-touchy Donald Trump? As you may have heard, a single Canadian ad triggered an extraordinary presidential snit and new trade war. Trump was so upset he canceled trade talks with Canada and then slapped an additional 10% tariff on American consumers of Canadian products.
Maybe not.
Now,
I don't know.
the ad is online. It's in this article. If you want to play it, you can, but it's on YouTube. And in a brilliant example, Charlie Sykes says, of the Streisand effect.
Yes.
He managed to call international attention to the words of Ronald Reagan, highlighting his massive break with the conservative icon. Here's the ad that chapped Trump by using Reagan's own words. The contrast is striking and dramatic. Trump's a tariff fetishist. Reagan decidedly was not. Here are Reagan's words in this ad. Quote, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes, for a short while, it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens, markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, this is Reagan speaking.
Man, who cares? Yeah.
There's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's job and growth are at stake. And Trump lost it because Ontario played Reagan saying that.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, says Charlie Sykes, and this is the complaint from the Trumpists, the ad does edit Reagan's actual words.
They're longer than 30 seconds, though.
That's right. So Phil Magnus said, I listened to both. The Ontario ad only differs by excerpting key lines of the speech to fit in the 1 minute time frame.
1 minute.
All these lines are authentic and reflect Reagan's anti-tariff beliefs. They are also public record. They do not require the permission of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation.
Right. They tried
the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation learned that the government of Ontario created an ad campaign using selective audio and video. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address. The government of Ontario didn't seek permission. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options.
They have none.
They don't have any.
Yeah.
You're right. It's completely public record. And the lines are authentic, says Phil Magnus. And really, this whole thing should be retracted. It's stupid.
I
just want to highlight the Barbra Streisand stupidity.
Yes. That's true.
The
Good
Barbara
point.
Streisand effect stupidity
Yes.
of
Her
trying to
stupidity
claim
is
that if I
outrageous.
talk about this, I'll look tough, when in fact you just look like a complete idiot.
Yeah. He says it's fake, it's AI. He's actually trying to go that direction. That they faked it. That they cheat. What did he say? Canada cheated on a TV.
Oh, that's
ad.
rich
Can you
coming from a
believe it?
hologram.
Yeah. Really. Well, it's what can you do? They
Anyway,
misunderstand the
Charlie
whole
Sykes
thing.
has the full
Top
transcript
to
of
bottom.
Reagan's 87 address. You can listen to them both if you wish.
Are you trying to get me to do it? I'm not gonna.
No,
All right.
because I don't think you will. But
Maybe
I will
later.
say, I'm going to get, this is short, so I'm
Okay.
going to give you Ronald Reagan's voice actually speaking. Once I can
There you go. That was
find, there it is.
it. All right.
Once
Okay.
I can find how.
YouTube.
So I just sent you the video of Ronald Reagan speaking, which
But
is
he
worth
died
listening.
before there was YouTube. How can this be? They knew this was fake.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's gonna whirl for a little bit. There's an ad. Well, bear with us.
Right. So, I thought
Okay.
all of that was interesting.
I
And
did
when you
too.
get to it, you'll
Let me-
play it.
Yeah, let me turn down the volume because I'm gonna have to play an ad here.
When someone says,
Oh no, there it is. Okay, there's just somebody.
You thought it was an
sitting-
ad? It's an ad, but it's an ad.
Yeah, that's true. It was a different ad. I don't know. There was somebody sitting there with some headphones on, and I thought it was going to play a different ad. But okay, maybe not. All right, this is the actual Ontario version.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
when someone
Sounds
says,
Canadian.
let's impose tariffs on foreign imports,
Yeah.
Recognize
it looks
the
like
voice.
they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works.
See,
But
the
only
point of
for a
all of
short-
this
I'm sorry.
is Trump fears this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, lots of nice footage too. That sizzling was not bacon. That was somebody welding or something like it. Anyway, but okay. All right. Lots of diverse photos of Americans, which I guess they have in stock footage there because this is Canada. They don't have any American footage. We had to export it, and it cost them a bundle.
Right. Well, now it costs more.
But over the
Yeah.
long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
There they are.
High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars.
Anyway, you can
Then the
stop.
worst
You get the,
Yeah,
the
it's
point
loud.
here.
Market
They have
shrinkage.
great, they have good speakers up there in Canada. They really pumped up the volume on that one. Yeah, so dramatic music, pictures of America, and what that guy said about tariffs, which
Right.
look, they
And
raised
so everybody
prices.
who
Everybody
actually
knows that.
studies Ronald Reagan and knows Ronald Reagan
Try not
and
to do
isn't
that.
a complete MAGA
So you're no Ronald
ditto
Reagan.
head understands that Reagan really did not like tariffs. You can't selectively edit it to make it sound like he said something he didn't believe. He did believe it.
Yeah, I mean, and that was Trump's claim. That was a lie. Reagan, they tried to make it sound like Reagan didn't love tariffs. Reagan loved
Exactly.
tariffs. No, oh my God, it's so
Right.
obvious.
So
he
this
did
is
not.
yes is no. Right. And so again, when you're losing it and you try to push this, yeah, you'll get your 30% faithful to believe you, but like everybody else is saying, wait, what?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And
True.
Carney,
Yeah.
Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, shrugged their shoulders and said, "We can't control the United States. Whatever."
Right.
Didn't back down, didn't apologize,
He didn't even do it. It was Ontario province did it.
Right, and they have a lot of
Wink,
autonomy
wink.
there. But point being, he didn't back down and he didn't apologize
Right.
and he didn't say, "Okay, we won't do it again." In fact, maybe he will.
Did the ad also run afterward in French?
That I do not know because
Okay.
it's Ontario.
Right. But I don't know if they have to do that there or not. And they don't have to do it here because it's America. Rawr.
Well, yeah. So or Spanish. Maybe they
Okay.
should have just done it in Albanian. I don't know.
Hmm.
He would have
Right.
gotten mad.
No. Wherever Trump is now, we'll just do it in that. Oh, Japan, I think.
So, staying at a McDonald's in Japan. This is a piece by David Grover, which is really long, and I'm certainly not going to read the
Oh.
whole thing.
Certainly.
But I think it's fascinating because he's talking about Nebraska hanging out
Okay.
in January, February 2025. January, February 2025.
Hanging out? What? Is
You
that what he
know,
said?
in Nebraska,
He's just
you know,
hanging
not
out
a
there?
place that we would normally think about. Do you know the name of the
I love
governor
those guys.
of Nebraska?
Is that Stitt? Or
No.
was it Stitt? Or
No, he's
Who's
Oklahoma, isn't he?
I don't know. Jeez.
The guy named Jim
Nebraska.
Pillar. I'm just
No,
trying to tell
I
you
don't.
these kinds of things. You can't name the governors of all 50 states. Some
No.
of them you never hear of.
I need help with that.
But
for sure.
here's an interesting thing about Jim Pillar. He was
Jim
approximately a year ago, like November, December 2024.
Okay.
A year ago from now.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Was in a really,
that makes
really
no
serious
sense.
accident.
Oh.
He was riding a horse. It was a new horse to him. Got bucked off the horse. Broke a couple of ribs, lacerated his spleen, probably broke a few other things too.
Yeah.
And that January appearance being referred to here, January, February 2025, was the first time he had appeared in public for a speech because it took him a long time to rehab.
Oh.
One of those things that, like, if you don't live in Nebraska, you probably don't know. So I just thought I'd tell you.
I did not know that one. Totally forgot that. Oklahoma's not even really all that close. There's a whole Kansas in between them.
Jim Pillar's giving this speech, and the author of the piece says, I kept waiting for a mention of the hardships a tariff war could bring to Nebraska farmers to no avail. Jim's top priority, eradicate the Nebraska blue dot and Omaha's independent electoral voice once and for all. Now more than ever, it's vital that our state speaks with a unified voice on the national stage. This is a what's the matter with Kansas, except in Nebraska.
Right.
Through his eyes,
next door.
Jim was focusing on what really mattered, a return to core values. Unfortunately, it had nothing to do with the well-being of his constituents. In fact, your core values were deficient if you didn't march in lockstep in support of snuffing out the blue dot. Here's the quote. Governor Jim Pillen, if you're a Republican and you don't believe in that, you are not a Republican.
Wow.
Now, as a hog farmer himself,
really,
Jim experienced firsthand. Yeah, it's the first farmer to be governor in like years and years and years.
I'm just checking because Scott Bessent says he's a farmer too.
Jim experienced firsthand the hardships brought forth by Trump's 2018 tariff fiasco. He wasn't a dummy. Who said he was a farmer?
Scott Bessent.
Bessent, isn't he the guy that started on Green Acres?
Yes.
He was a farmer.
Right. Yes, he spent the weekend. He was
more of a farmer than Scott Bessent is a farmer. But in any case, Governor Jim isn't a dummy. He knew it was coming, but here's how he catched it in paying in-person homage to Trump on February 2025.
Yeah.
You're inspiring Nebraskans to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to stand up for what we believe in, faith, family, hard work, and the American dream. According to Jim, the American dream was getting slammed backwards, counterproductive trade and tariff policies cooked up by people who'd never set foot on a farm. Anyone vaguely awake during History 101? Anyone? No. In high school knows America has already tried the grand tariff experiment. And then he's the one that quoted Bueller, and that's why I pulled that piece. And you had to ask, why are we going down this road again? It's even ingrained in pop culture, thanks to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But you don't have to be a Nebraska farmer who's also a Hollywood movie buff to understand the likely economic impact of an agricultural tariff war. You just have to have been a Nebraska farmer in 2018 when Trump's trade spat with China triggered an emergency bailout. Then he goes on to say, Nebraska farmers don't want a bailout. They want to be able to do competitive prices. And by the way, this was written over the summer. So it's not referring to the current problem, which is even worse, but highly relevant.
Yeah.
The impact on Nebraska farming was immediate and deep, resulting in $1 billion in tariff-related losses in 2018 and 2019. Corn losses alone, tariff was $250 million. In true Trump administration fashion, Trump rushed in with duct tape to fix the problem, providing $1 billion in bailout funding to Nebraska alone. The upshot of all of this was that the nanny state rode into the rescue once again, making Nebraska farmers even more dependent on government largesse. So again, point being that, you can say I'm doing this for America and real values, and we have to snuff out that blue dot in Omaha because we stand for the real America. But your real America is way more socialist than Zoran Mamdani ever was on a good day.
Yes, they never acknowledge their own, taking from the government and acceptance of handouts. That's long-standing Republican policy. Interesting, though, for governor of Nebraska to say, we really got to get rid of Omaha. Really? Wow. Okay.
Because it's un-American.
Yeah.
Several Nebraska MAGA
Mutually.
GOP politicians, including Governor Jim Pillen, have gone on record against Trump's tariffs. Adrian Smith, deep red CD3. I'm not a fan of tariffs. I also understand that they need to be a tool in the toolbox. We have to focus on how to most appropriately drive a tough negotiation. Don Bacon, CD2, a little bit more liberal, that guy. I think it's dangerous for our farmers. When other countries want to retaliate, they do it against our farmers.
Yes.
And Don Bacon represents Omaha, if I'm not mistaken. Jim Pillen, Nebraska governor and hog farmer. However, we fear yesterday's announced plan to increase tariffs. This is back in the day, in the first administration, threatens the economic future of farm and ranch families who have lost money on most major crops in the past 3 years. The cohort is in on variations of the art of the deal 4D chess theme. He has a master plan. We mere mortals just don't really understand it. And, of course, do-nothing Deb Fischer and Governor Jim Pillen, the first farmer to hold a governor's mansion in decades, are fully supportive of continued and growing government handouts to Nebraska farmers. So that's the way they're pushing it in Nebraska. Does it make a difference? Well, it's not going to make Nebraska blue.
No.
But does it reflect what people, for example, feel like in Iowa, where there's a much better chance that you might get some blue reaction there? Oh, Iowa is a red state right now, but it wasn't relatively recently, and it doesn't have to be in the future, not after stuff like this. And so that's why a lot of this is more relevant than just, well, okay, they feel bad, but they're going to vote Republican. Perhaps in Iowa they'll feel bad and they won't vote Republican.
Could be.
Because these are Republican tariffs.
Yes.
It may be an Epstein ballroom, but these are Republican tariffs, and Republicans are responsible for all things bad. I just, again, have to remind people.
Guess so. All right, weird Nebraska. What can I tell you? I've never really thought of them as being upset about having Omaha in there, but I guess they are, because there are voters there that disagree with a hog farming guy who fell off a horse.
Right. The other thing he points out is that if there's anybody who still believes that Trump is using tariff threats as a tool to negotiate, he's not. He likes tariffs, and you can't deny that anymore. So that's also an important thing that's different than the very beginning of the administration.
He does. He likes them. He thinks everybody else likes them too, including people who historically did not.
And also who never heard of tariffs before. I'm the first person. You probably didn't know this.
Right.
I'm the only one who really has heard of tariffs, and it's never been done before.
Same with groceries.
This, that, and everything else.
Sure. Okay. Well, I've been
checking just like with Storm Aid backfiring, screwing MAGA voters, his tariffs are screwing MAGA voters. Yeah. Eventually, will it make a difference? I think it will. It's just going to take time, because you have this effect of, well, I'm going to defend it because I can think of reasons why, even though I'm suffering, those other people are suffering more, and therefore I could live with it as long as they suffer more than I do.
Yeah. Well, what can I tell you? We should air ads that say, they're not. You're suffering worse. Oh no.
Right, and I'll finish the segment with this piece from Sarah Stein Lubrano, writing in Zeteo, Zeteo.
Oh, yeah.
Relatively new startup.
Yes.
You don't argue with extremists, you organize against them. Studies show debate is not the tool for political change, many believe. Author and researcher Sarah Stein Lubrano argues, but you know that what she's quoting is data that says political debates are entertaining but never really change minds. The only debate of any significance that actually changed minds was, unfortunately, Biden's.
Yes, I suppose. Well, certainly lately. Then there was the 1960 presidential debate. Oh, well.
Right.
But it's few and far between. Every 50
reminds
years you should watch one.
That Charlie Kirk's debate don't.
Yeah.
And Mehdi Hassan's taking on 10 people at once don't. Yeah. None of that really matters.
Right. I don't even know who enjoys watching that, but
when you have a political opinion, it's not in concrete, but it's like quick drying mud, and you have to work to free it.
Okay.
So I'm just saying.
All right. Well, it was nice of you to say so.
All right. There's more reaction to the No Kings thing. People, for some reason, like to point out, oh, this is old people. No, it wasn't old people. It was 40-year-old women.
Some people
no matter which group you try to define as being the No Kings crowd.
Yeah.
All of them that MAGA is trying to do are very consistent, reliable voters. So I don't know their point.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Our inconsistent, hardly ever vote don't like anybody except Trump. They weren't at this rally, therefore we win. No, actually.
There's no winning.
People who showed up at the rally are actually going to register to vote, and you're going to lose.
Yeah. Well, actually, the issue is probably that they were already registered because they've been registered for 20 years.
Yes, but they've been registering other people, too. That's part of the thing that's been going on at these.
True. They're very often their kids and grandchildren who they're registering. So, yeah, all right. Well, that's I don't know why they're stuck on this, but yeah, they're still, I don't know what to tell you. They're still trying to spin this thing, and I guess it kind of works because there's this weird, there's a weird thing in the press.
Streisand effect.
Yeah, I guess. So that's fine. Keep it in the news. The press at first, you know what, though? They seemed inclined to go along with it wasn't very important. But now the more they're whining about it, the press is like, it must be, maybe it is important. These guys won't shut up about it. That's odd. Well, all right. If it takes a little while longer to reverse the news coverage trend on it, that's okay. Keep it in the news until the next round, and you can complain and cry about that one. So I can't argue with that. Keeping it in the news. A lot of Streisand news without Barbara Streisand actually doing anything. Don't you? Yeah. All right. Well, golly, so much happening on that front. Trump, I'm sure will make some more news later. I think he's in Japan for a day or two, and then back on the plane is where he tends to be uncontrolled and unsupervised, and there are press around. The fake meetings that they occupy his time with, we don't hear much about, even though that's supposed to be the centerpiece of the reason he's overseas.
Yeah. Well, I expect that he's going to wind up taking credit for the Pacific Ocean. I don't know if you know this. People don't know this. There's an ocean out here, I discovered. Yes. It's big. There's a lot of water. Passive.
I should go.
And nobody's ever noticed this before, but Japan is surrounded by a lot of water. So I'm going to get the prime minister to admit that the United States and me in particular, we take credit for this.
Yes. I'm hoping he'll break the record for vomiting on Japanese prime ministers. It's a record primed for shattering. I think he can definitely do better. So I don't know that the Japanese are looking forward to it, but if there's any president, again, likely to challenge that record and do something more disgusting in Japan, I guess I'd have to bet on Trump. By the way, I did see something I hadn't thought about, and I'm not positive I verified the claim as true, but it's something to look into. I can't think of another one. But that Trump may be the first president to take at least an extended overseas trip in the middle of a government shutdown. That's I mean, a government shutdown would not normally prevent him from taking such a trip, whoever the president is. But they've never been. They're very rarely as long as they are under Trump. Trump will, in the end, have presided over the two longest government shutdowns in history. So I guess it's more likely that something like that would happen. But usually a shutdown will only last a couple of days, and I guess it's not like the president is abroad every time. It's just bad scheduling, I suppose. And he wasn't going to settle the issue if he were here. But it is very interesting. He's overseas dealing with foreign allies, at least mostly allies at this point. But they are aware of, one, he's tariffing. We'll use that as a verb, tariffing them, and at the same time that he's there on behalf of a government that isn't functioning, and even if it were being paid for, might not be functioning. And it seems like most of the people who he's meeting with have kind of come to realize nothing substantive is going to go on here. What we need to do is put on a show and flatter this guy, and then that's how we'll get our best deals. We can't talk substance with him and come to a reasonable conclusion. We just have to roll out red carpets and play music and have bands and people in uniforms and tell him he's important, and then he might help us out. So maybe one of the least consequential Asian summits in history, minus the fake one he had with North Korea.
Right.
Bad news.
Anyway, that's the story.
Sure.
And I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Okay, very good. Enjoy all the renovations. And
I just this is my favorite kind of activity, sitting around waiting for things to dry. I can handle it.
You're literally watching paint dry.
Yeah.
That's news. Well, okay. Good. Enjoy it. I'm sure it'll, you can tell us if it's dry on Wednesday.
I can send you a picture of it when it dries.
Right.
It's going to be the same picture as when it wasn't dry. But
well, maybe. Changes
those of you who are listening can't see the pictures, but I'm enjoying sending them to David, even if David is not enjoying getting them.
I am enjoying getting them. It's just always fun to look at. It's just funny to describe it as what it actually is, which is, watching paint dry. Was it glue drying or paint drying that you were waiting for with the shower doors?
Well, silicone.
Silicone. Okay, so it's kind of glue-ish.
We kind of like it not to leak.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are important points in bathroom renovation techniques. All right, Greg. Thanks very much. And nearly time for us to get ready to roll out with the break music. See if there's anything else that has on tap that I need to check in with you about. No, I'm not certain. Except we'll set up the rest of this by. Oh, I think I mentioned to you off the in the break that I'll see if I can find the posts about this. That Melania Trump, we sort of barely mentioned her in all this, as the first lady, ostensibly, would have one of the greater stakes in the demolition of the East Wing, and as it's starting to sound like that, behind the scenes, she's a little bit upset about what she surely regards in the selfish Trump way as her wing of the White House. But that would be where the First Lady's offices traditionally are. That was also the area that she decorated in weirdo style in the first or second Christmas in the White House, like the murder trees.
Yeah, like I said, Carrie style.
Yeah, so that's all gone. And apparently she is kind of upset about it. Not that anybody believed that her husband was going to consult with her about anything. But, it's apparently bothering her and that making people take note. She hasn't been around much lately. All right, Greg, we'll see you on Wednesday. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I have a feeling as I'm staring at my Instapaper here that there are some things that I feel like I remember designating for saving an Instapaper this morning that just didn't appear to make it into, I'm trying to reload here. And sometimes it takes a while. There we go. To register those updates. All right. Lots to catch up on, and I guess they're still loading here. But I thought maybe we would catch up with something. I'll take the challenge here, just because now it's top of the list at Instapaper, about Judd Legum posting on Blue Sky. About a piece in, where did he get it from? I have to go back and look now. Something from, I guess he's introducing maybe, is this one of his pieces? Popular Info is his newsletter, yeah. And he poses this challenge in his Blue Sky post about linking to his latest, I guess, from Popular Info, saying that last week, I'll open it up in the browser here so we see the correct formatting. Last week, there were 3 Trump corruption scandals in 4 days that would define any other presidency. Okay. But then the challenge. Most people are probably not even aware of all 3 scandals. And so it made me wonder whether we were aware of all 3 scandals. And if not, we should get caught up on them. We want to know what's on the minds of people like Judd Legum, in fact. Let's see. 3 scandals in 4 days that would define any other presidency is his title from Popular Info, popular.info. Of course, during the second Trump administration, that's this one. And he's already, of course, talking in the press gaggle on his way to Japan about his third term. That was the subject of much of the stand-up gaggle exchange, apparently. But during the second Trump administration, corruption scandals that would typically define a presidency receive a day or two of coverage because he just keeps the fire hose going, I guess. Part of the issue is that for Trump, enriching himself and his family is one of the core purposes of his presidency, or indeed his life, I might add. The media industry is both unwilling and unable to cover this level of corruption rigorously. Treating Trump's corruption scandals like those of previous presidents would make outlets appear biased and strain the resources of an industry that has been contracting over the past 25 years. And of course, by the way, is also targeted by Trump. A lot of the ways in which he's enriching himself include essentially putting these media companies over a barrel and forcing them to agree to either pay him money or give him better coverage or both. Anyway, so it's not going to work out very well. To put the scope of the problem in context, he continues, consider the corruption scandals that have emerged over just the last week. All right, I just want to make sure that we know about all of them. First, after a $2 billion transaction with Trump cryptocurrency, a convicted felon receives a pardon. I think this may have happened over the weekend or at least after Friday's show. We haven't talked about this one, so that's good news in terms of the value of this piece. In November of 2023, Binance's founder and CEO Changpeng Zhao pled guilty to willfully violating anti-money laundering laws. According to the Department of Justice, back when we had one, his actions, quote, allowed money to flow to terrorists, we're supposed to be against that, cyber criminals, also bad, and child abusers. Actually, there's a whole movement that says that they were all about that, but now that they found out that their guy that they preferred is the child molester they were talking about, they are quiet. Anyway, all of that happened through Binance because it's cryptocurrency, and at heart, that's really what the first use case of cryptocurrency really was, and it largely remains for use in illegal activity, which is why it attracts so many shady characters. Anyway, Zhao, known as CZ for short, I guess, Changpeng Zhao, served 4 months in federal prison and agreed to resign as CEO. The company's conduct was brazen. One Binance compliance official suggested the company used this marketing slogan: is washing drug money too hard these days? Come to Binance. We got cake for you. It's a very interesting marketing slogan on a number of levels. CZ told employees it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission and prioritized Binance's growth over compliance with U.S. law. Since the 2024 election, CZ and Binance have generated millions in profits for Trump by conducting transactions with companies linked to Trump and his family. Most significantly, in May, Binance accepted a $2 billion investment from a state-backed UAE investment fund using the cryptocurrency USD1. The USD1 token, a so-called stable coin, never mind what that might even mean, had just been created by World Liberty Financial. Trump and his family members own about 38% of World Liberty Financial. Binance's transaction gave USD1 immediate legitimacy and liquidity. It is expected to generate tens of millions in annual profits for World Liberty Financial, WLF for short. Further, according to Bloomberg, Binance wrote the basic code to power USD1 and promoted USD1 to its 275 million users, a sought-after benefit among stablecoin issuers. In other words, the entire USD1 project appears to be a gift from CZ to Trump. Binance provided the technical expertise for its creation, promoted it, and is the largest holder of the token. It is, quote, unclear if Binance or CZ received any payment from World Liberty in return. Oh, but now he's got one. CZ, through his family office, is also collaborating on a crypto project with an investment firm linked to Trump's eldest sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. On Thursday, Trump pardoned CZ, which CZ had requested. The move could open the door for CZ to return as CEO and for Binance to begin operating in the United States. Trump said he pardoned CZ at the request of a lot of very good people who said that what he did is not even a crime. CZ hired Ches McDowell, a hunting buddy of Trump Jr., $450,000 last month. He paid to lobby Trump for, quote, executive relief. That's not an Epstein term, I don't think. On October 14th, Trump Jr. and McDowell were spotted at the White House. And here's a photo of them being spotted at the White House. So there you go. Scandal number one that most people don't even know about, that we haven't had a chance to talk about, but I bet you actually knew most of the background story to that one. Anyway, story number two. Pentagon awards major drone contract to company linked to Trump Jr. In November 2024, a few weeks after Trump won the presidential election, an obscure drone company called Unusual Machines, that is an unusual name for a drone company, brought on Trump Jr. as an advisor because his father drones on, so he thought he would have expertise. I mean, it's the Hunter Biden story all over again, but because it's Republican, it's good, and so therefore, let's move on. Trump Jr., who has no notable experience with drones or military contracting, was granted 200,000 shares in the company, a stake worth millions. Trump Jr. later helped screen candidates for top jobs at the Pentagon on behalf of his father after the election. Remember, he's not connected to the politics. In the September 18th edition of Trump Jr.'s podcast, Triggered, he admitted that he sought out people who wanted to shift more spending into drones. Trump Jr. said he tried to avoid former F-15 pilots because they sort of want to go with what they know. The military, Trump Jr. said, is better served with a drone that costs a tiny fraction of that of a plane. When Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's nomination was imperiled due to rape allegations, as will sometimes happen, Trump Jr. emerged as one of his most outspoken defenders. There's an embedded tweet about that in here now. What does it read? I don't know whether it's Truth Social or tweet. I don't know. But when you are a partisan with no talent or real sources or actual things to report on things, this is the only remaining tactic. No one is falling for it anymore. Confirm Pete now, he said. Hegseth later issued several directives, making it easier for the Pentagon to spend money on, you'll never guess, drones, particularly from U.S. manufacturers like, say, Unusual Machines. It's good that they're spending it on U.S. manufacturers. That's true. But he's in the drone business now, and now the Pentagon will be buying more drones. That's the bottom line of it. On Friday, the Financial Times reported that Unusual Machines won its largest contract from the Pentagon. The company said the U.S. Army had contracted it to manufacture 3,500 drone motors, alongside various other drone parts. The Army also indicated it planned to order an additional 20,000 components from Unusual Machines this year. By the way, the main feature of the Unusual Machines drone is it has AI on board, and if it thinks it's being sent to destroy a drug boat, if it's fentanyl, it'll blow it up. If it's cocaine, it just has a kill switch. Thing dives into the ocean, and that's the end of it. So thereby preserving, the supply chain for people who hold positions of importance in the company. It is said. That may be an untrue rumor. I don't know. Unusual Machines CEO Alan Evans, who may also enjoy that function, said the contract has nothing to do with Trump Jr., which just, I guess, raises more questions about why did you bring him on board then? I don't know. Stating that the president's son, quote, did not advise or do anything else on this deal. We just gave him 200,000 shares for no reason. Through a spokesperson, Trump Jr. said that his role at Unusual Machines, quote, has nothing to do with interfacing with the government. It doesn't have anything to do with designing drones, but we don't know what it does have anything to do with. The exact value of the contract is not yet known because the government stopped updating its contracting database on October 1st, the start of the government shutdown. How about number 3? Do we know about this one? Yes, this one we definitely know about. Trump seeks $230 million payment from Justice Department officials he appointed. Yes. Ordinarily, I guess I'd skip this one, but, I'd be interested to see how Judd Legum digs in on this one. Last Tuesday, the New York Times reported that Trump is demanding that the Justice Department pay him about $230 million in compensation. Trump filed the claims in 2023 and 2024 under the Federal Tort Claims Act, claiming he had been, quote, persecuted by various federal investigations, including the Russia probe, the Mar-a-Lago search, and the classified documents prosecution. And that's the Jonathan Karl book, I guess, telling us about some of those items. Oh, no, actually, that was January 6th stuff, not the documents prosecution. Okay. In general, the federal government is immune from civil lawsuits, but the Federal Tort Claims Act creates a narrow exception for official misconduct. Under the FTCA, a claimant does not immediately file a lawsuit. First, the claim must be submitted to the federal government, which may either reject it or issue a payout. Nearly all claims filed under the FTCA are unsuccessful. Trump would ordinarily have an even harder case because all the conduct occurred in the course of official investigations and in many cases was approved by a judge. Prosecutors have broad discretion to conduct investigations as they see fit within the bounds of the law. The fact that Trump was not ultimately convicted in some cases does not make him eligible for compensation under the FTCA. But in Trump's case, the officials in charge of deciding whether to issue a payment are, of course, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who represented Trump in the hush money trial. Remember Stormy Daniels? Okay, fine. And Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, who represented Trump's co-defendant in the classified documents prosecution. Trump went even further, claiming he would personally decide whether the federal government should pay him $230 million. I'm the one that makes the decision, and that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself, Trump said. It sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? Such a payment would also be illegal because the Constitution prohibits the president from receiving compensation from the government other than a salary. You know what that is. It's the emoluments clause. Okay, well, there you go. So now actually 2 out of the 3 of them were worth updating just in terms of the have we heard of them, because we haven't discussed them. You have probably heard about them. And always a good reminder, the $230 million case that's going on. All right. So well worth doing. Speaking of those sorts of issues, it's Monday, so there's a freebie from Steve Vladek to take advantage of, and slightly different subject, but sort of similar in that it takes us into what's happening behind the scenes in the legal angles that Trump's taking. This is, when can states prosecute federal officers? So this is actually, I guess, was prompted for Vladek, I think, by comments from Stephen Miller at the end of last week, wherein he said there were, let's see, was it Gavin Newsom or Pritzker? Maybe Governor Pritzker had said, listen, if federal agents violate state law while they're here, they can be criminally prosecuted for their activity. To which Miller responded, no, that's not true. Federal supremacy means, and doesn't mean this, that they can not be prosecuted by the states, and that an attempt to prosecute a federal officer under state law was itself treason and sedition, and you will be arrested for trying to do that. Well, Stephen Miller, as you may have already learned, did not go to law school, but that's hardly worth anything anymore these days, since the law turns out not to mean what we thought it meant. We were all pretty wrong about these things because there are 6, sometimes just 5, but often enough. 5 is enough. And unlike the program 8 is enough. That was not true on the Supreme Court, although perhaps if we expand it, 8 will be enough. But 5 is enough right now to just decide that the law, as everyone has understood it for 250 years, has always been wrong. You just didn't know it yet. And therefore, things that you assumed were bedrock constitutional principles are not. All right, here's the way Steve Vladek covers it. When can states prosecute federal officers? The subheader sets it up. Stephen Miller claims that ICE officers have, quote, immunity, big word for the Trump administration, immunity for anything they do while enforcing immigration law. Even as an argument about state criminal prosecutions, that claim is overstated at best. So, where does he begin? Let's start here. As ever, there is a lot going on. But I, Stephen Vladeck, was particularly struck by comments that White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller made on Fox News on Friday. In response to concerns about whether ICE agents could be prosecuted by local or state authorities for their increasingly controversial conduct in and around Chicago, Miller first accused Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker of, quote, seditious conspiracy. It's an important terminology. And then, in a message certainly intended to be heard far and wide, said, quote, to all ICE officers, colon, in a spoken quote. To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties, and anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop or obstruct you is committing a felony. And he's wearing a suit, and he works at the White House, and people are supposed to, I guess, take this as even like remotely true. But he's not a lawyer, and that would be something you might want to tell people if you cared about how they reacted to it. And here is embedded that message, that comment on the air with Fox News as captured by Aaron Rupar, just so you can see it for yourself. We have, obviously, become completely desensitized to how utterly outrageous the first part of Miller's statement is, especially given the fact that Miller is part of an administration that has pardoned people who were actually convicted of seditious conspiracy for their role in attacking the Capitol on January 6th. And their accusations are so often, that's interesting, their accusations are so often confessions. You're welcome, Professor Vladeck. I know, I've done a lot in promoting that. I don't believe I actually originated that phrase, but I don't know, maybe it's entirely possible that I did, but I find it hard to believe. And because it's a natural conclusion to draw. Anyway, I've been working hard to popularize it. So we have not only become desensitized to all of that, but I wanted to devote a bit of time to the second part of Miller's message, his claim that ICE officers have federal immunity in the conduct of their duties, and that anyone who seeks to prosecute them is committing a felony. It is, to be clear, wrong on its face. The federal government absolutely retains the ability to prosecute federal law enforcement officers who break the law, even in the course of carrying out their duties. Indeed, the specter of criminal prosecution has long been the federal government's principal argument for why we don't need damages remedies to ensure that immigration officers follow the law. The fact that this administration is wholly uninterested in pursuing such prosecutions is a problem, but given that most of the relevant statutes of limitations won't expire until 2030 or later, that's not even close to immunity. The more interesting issue, though, that was all federal, is Miller's insinuation that ICE officers would become immune from local or state prosecutions. There certainly are some contexts in which the Constitution forecloses local or state governments from prosecuting federal officers, through a doctrine that has come to be known, however unspecifically, as Supremacy Clause immunity. But the rule is not nearly as categorical as Miller suggests, nor is it a felony for local or state authorities to arrest someone who they have probable cause to believe committed a state crime. Below the fold, the non-existent digital fold, I walk through the doctrine, such as it is, and what the key questions would be if one of these cases were to actually arise. Okay, and then he says, but first, the news. And does that mean it's a diversion into the news, or does that mean, I guess so. By the way, what does he consider to be the news? Just so we let you know, he rounds up what's on the docket these days and who's suing who, where, and which important cases are in motion. Then he fills us in on what's happening in the emergency docket, where so much happens in front of the SCOTUS, and they reach conclusions but don't tell us why. And then a look at the week ahead for the normal operations of the Supreme Court. Now, on to the limits of the Supremacy Clause immunity situation. Let's skip down to that. The doctrine that is today known as Supremacy Clause immunity has its origins, ready to get a little bit bored and into the weeds, has its origins in an 1890 Supreme Court decision that I've written about before. It's linked here. In re Nagel, Neagle. I assume it's pronounced Nagel. I don't know if I recall hearing that pronounced. But anyway, it arose out of the attempted assassination of Justice Stephen Field. How about that? Go look that one up. In Nagel, the Supreme Court held that California could not prosecute David Nagel, who had been deputized as a federal marshal to protect Field, for shooting and killing Field's would-be assassin, even though, unbeknownst to Nagel, the victim was unarmed when he was killed. As the court explained, if the prisoner is held in the state court to answer for an act which he was authorized to do by the law of the United States, which it was his duty to do as a federal officer of the United States, and if in doing that act he did no more than was necessary and proper for him to do, he cannot be guilty of a crime under the laws of the state. When these things are shown, it is established that he is innocent of any crime against the laws of the state or of any other authority whatever. There is no occasion for any further trial in the state court or in any court. You can see how they might have wanted to reach that conclusion, right? This understanding derives from the Supremacy Clause because it's by dint of that constitutional provision that state criminal laws must give way to the valid actions of a federal officer acting pursuant to federal authority. And, as controversial as much of the federal government's current law enforcement activity may be, there's a lot to commend at least the broader principle undergirding Supremacy Clause immunity under normal circumstances. If the Constitution truly does elevate federal law over state law, it wouldn't make sense if states could prosecute federal officers for official actions that were necessary to enforce federal law. For example, enforcing anti-discrimination laws, back in the day when they did that. Otherwise, states could criminalize the very conduct that federal law enforcement officers engage in and thereby thwart the enforcement of any federal law with which they disagree. So in the normal times, for instance, if there were federal anti-discrimination laws in effect and federal officers came to make sure that you didn't, for instance, in contradiction to federal orders and federal law, continue to segregate your public schools in certain states where they were want to do so. And federal officials came to enforce the desegregation, and you arrested those officers by saying it's still against state law to integrate schools, then you would have a problem, right? We don't ordinarily want that to be happening. The critical point, though, is that even at its broadest, Supremacy Clause immunity does not categorically insulate federal officers from local or state prosecutions for, to quote Stephen Miller, any actions undertaken in the conduct of their duties. Rather, following Nagel, modern courts will generally apply Supremacy Clause immunity only when both of two conditions are satisfied. Ready for the two conditions? When the federal officer was performing an act that he was authorized to do by federal law, and two, in performing the authorized act, the federal officer did no more than what was necessary and proper. Put another way, it's not enough that the federal officer was carrying out their duties. Their conduct must also have had some significant connection to their ability to do that which federal law authorizes. Of course, what counts as necessary and proper is and has been a matter of some debate. There's broad agreement among lower courts that the question goes to whether the officer's actions were reasonably necessary to carry out his or her duties. The principal dispute has been over whether that reasonableness should be measured purely objectively, i.e. by asking what a reasonable person in that officer's position would have thought, or whether it should include subjective considerations as well, by also accounting for whether that officer specifically thought his actions were necessary. And I guess we haven't gotten there yet, but you can see where this is shaping up to be an issue. Like, well, you're carrying out your duties, but did you do so in a way that was not further beyond what was necessary and proper? And if the answer is, well, we're considering the random tear gassing of intersections inside a major city and in school zones, and we are doing jump out squads and grabbing people off the street and who turn out later to be, by the way, citizens of the United States, and holding them for days at a time or even weeks at a time before unceremoniously releasing them with no explanation for why they were taken in the first place, is all of that reasonable and necessary? Well, we'll find out. Now, heading into the break, of course, it's probably best that I don't restart the consideration of the subject, and it's very dense and weedy, that's true. It is, after all, Stephen Vladeck. But Monday, you're well rested after the weekend, I assume, and ready to dissect such information. Plus, we got more news to catch up on, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I need to get an MRI to figure out why I can't say those things clearly. By the way, I'm looking at, while we're returning, a post, some discussion on Blue Sky. I guess what the president's been babbling about on one or another of the flights was he's back to bragging about having aced those basic mental acuity tests that determine whether or not you need to be institutionalized for dementia, dog, cat, man, woman, person, whatever. But also discussing, I guess, New York Times post about it here says President Trump said he had an MRI earlier this month, telling reporters on Monday, that's today, that the results had been, quote, perfect, but declining to say why his doctors had ordered the scan. He reiterated that he was interested in serving a third term. That may have been part of why they wanted to do this scan. But yeah, others pointing out, usually people don't just get MRI brain scans all the time. And apparently that's an issue, and people are like, so the doctors are worried enough about your deterioration that they did a brain MRI? That's actually quite concerning if that's what actually happened, but who knows? Anyway, just pointing out that is actually happening, and people are discussing it openly and in his presence, and he's happy to discuss it too. Nobody ever had a brain MRI that was so perfect as me. All right. Back then to if your MRI is doing fine, you might be able to follow along with what Steve Vladeck is telling us in a very weedy way about the supremacy clause. I know it's tough to follow sometimes, but it's, I guess, that much more interesting than when you hear people like Stephen Miller making these outlandish claims about federal officers and the supposed immunity from prosecution, to get the full story that goes behind it. So we left off by saying that, of course, what counts as necessary and proper is and has been a matter of some debate. I'm going to repeat this paragraph just to set things up again. There's broad agreement among lower courts that the question goes to whether the officer's actions were reasonably necessary to carry out his or her duties. The principal dispute has been over whether that reasonableness should be measured purely objectively, i.e. by asking what a reasonable person in that officer's position would have thought, or whether it should include subjective considerations as well, by also accounting for whether that officer specifically thought his actions were necessary. Then Judge Michael McConnell, writing for the 10th Circuit in a 2006 case, provided a helpful summary of the competing considerations before endorsing a more objective standard. As he concluded, a federal officer is not entitled to Supremacy Clause immunity unless, in the course of performing an act which he is authorized to do under federal law, the agent had an objectively reasonable and well-founded basis to believe that his actions were necessary to fulfill his duties. Tellingly, the 10th Circuit, on which Judge McConnell served at the time, the 10th Circuit left for another day whether federal officers are entitled to Supremacy Clause immunity where their state law violation was disproportionate to the federal policy they were carrying out, where, for example, they commit a grievous state offense for the purpose of enforcing a trivial federal policy, right? I just couldn't stop him from violating the something regulation against littering in a state or in a national park. So I shot him. Like, is that really going to stand up? We think probably not. But you never know. Although not every jurisdiction uses the exact same formulation, McConnell's view is the prevailing one today. So were Chicago or Illinois officials to bring charges against ICE officers for state law crimes arising out of their behavior on raids, for instance, the question would be whether a reasonable officer would have thought that the conduct giving rise to the state law criminal charges was necessary to discharge the authorized federal duties. That's a generous standard, to be sure, but it is by no means a get-out-of-prosecution-free card, as Miller would have you believe, right? Not surprisingly, the contours of the Supremacy Clause immunity doctrine have been criticized, including in a new and helpful paper by Professor Michael Mannheimer, and a thoughtful 2023 Virginia Law Review student note by Dev Ranjan, the Ranjan, if you need to look it up. And the Supreme Court hasn't weighed in on the subject since 1920. So I don't mean to suggest that the law is crystal clear here, but what is clear is that Miller is wrong. Even at its most robust, Supremacy Clause immunity would not preclude a local or state prosecution of ICE officers for all scope of employment conduct. The question would turn, at least under Judge McConnell's approach, on whether the officer had an objectively reasonable and well-founded basis to believe that his actions were necessary to fulfill his duties. That analysis may well come out in the officer's favor in the mine run of cases, but it wouldn't. Mine run? Okay, yes, I guess so. But wouldn't, and historically hasn't, in all of them. Okay, so you don't always win. You should be aware of that. And, of course, Stephen Miller's comments are intended to be interpreted by federal officers as, at the very least, if not that your immunity is absolute, then that you will almost never lose such a case. And that isn't true either. To be sure, I still believe that the specter of criminal prosecutions, even by local or state officials, is woefully inadequate deterrent for misconduct by federal law enforcement officers. Among lots of other things, there is plenty of law enforcement conduct that would constitute a violation of the Constitution, but not of any state criminal statutes. Criminal prosecutions are for a subset of unlawful federal law enforcement activity, albeit the most important subset. Still, two things can be true at once. There ought to be even more pathways for holding federal officers who violate our rights accountable, and local and state criminal prosecutions, in at least some cases, are not remotely foreclosed. so that state officers who seek to pursue such cases in good faith are not committing any crimes under federal law. There may be political reasons why local or state prosecutors will be wary of bringing such cases, but, and I know this is a shock, the relevant law is far more permissive when it comes to the ability to hold federal officers accountable than Stephen Miller would have you believe. Okay. So, there's a bit more to this entry, but it shifts gears at this point and moves into very different territory. So there you go. Just wanted to let you know that if you wanted to hear a smart and thorough and weedy explanation as to why that thing that felt like it would absolutely have to be wrong when Stephen Miller said it is in fact wrong, now you are so armed. Okay, time to look elsewhere in Instapaper, catch up on other things that I socked away for you here. Let's see. Golly, that's a good one. There are many of interest here. Let me, at this point, wander into. I think this would be good. Just general information for everybody. If you are an AI skeptic, like me, this probably won't surprise you. If you're AI curious like others, well, this is, I guess, important to note. In addition to the many failures that AI chatbots will bring you if you ask them for factual information, they're actually quite terrible at giving you the correct answer, as it turns out, of just simple factual questions. But it's interesting as a sort of glamorized or glorified autocomplete. Not bad at giving you suggestions for opening paragraphs or even entire, like let's say things that don't matter a great deal, like cover letters. I am applying for this job. This is my resume. Help me write a cover letter. Fine. And then you check it over. But if you're asking for just straight up facts, you tend to get garbage. And there are a lot of problems with the garbage you get. And here's one from Wired Magazine, where Matt Burgess and Natasha Bernal outline the story here under the headline, "Chatbots are pushing sanctioned Russian propaganda." Oh, you don't want to be a part of that now, do you? ChatGPT, that very famous one, Gemini, DeepSeek, and Grok are serving users propaganda from Russia-backed media when asked about the invasion of Ukraine, new research finds. Please, don't trust these things. OpenAI's chatbot, or ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, I can't even pronounce any of these things. They're so infuriating. And let's see, xAI's Grok are all pushing Russian state propaganda from sanctioned entities, including citations from Russian state media, sites tied to Russian intelligence or pro-Kremlin narratives when asked about the war against Ukraine, according to a new report. Researchers from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, the ISD, claim that Russian propaganda has targeted and exploited data voids where searches for real-time data provide few results from legitimate sources to promote false and misleading information. Almost 1/5 of responses to questions about Russia's war in Ukraine across the 4 chatbots they tested cited Russian state-attributed sources, the ISD research claims. It raises questions regarding how chatbots should deal when referencing these sources, and considering many of them are sanctioned by the EU, says Pablo Maristani? Oh my goodness. Pablo Maristani de las Casas. Got it. An analyst at the ISD who led the research. The findings raise serious questions about the ability of large language models, LLMs, to restrict sanctioned media in the EU, which is a growing concern as more people use AI chatbots as an alternative to search engines to find information in real time, the ISD claims. For the 6-month period ending September 30th, 2025, ChatGPT search had approximately 120.4 million average monthly active recipients in the European Union, according to OpenAI data. The researchers asked the chatbots 300 neutral, biased, and malicious questions, just for a variety, relating to the perception of NATO, peace talks, Ukraine's military recruitment, Ukrainian refugees, and war crimes committed during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The researchers used separate accounts for each query in English, Spanish, French, German, and Italian in an experiment in July. The same propaganda issues are still present in October, Maristani de las Casas says, amid widespread sanctions imposed on Russia since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. European officials have sanctioned at least 27 Russian media sources for spreading disinformation and distorting facts as part of its, quote, strategy of destabilizing Europe and other nations. The ISD research says chatbots cited Sputnik Globe, Sputnik China, RT, formerly Russia Today, EA Daily, the Strategic Culture Foundation, and the RFBI. RFBI. Okay. R-FBI, like Russia FBI. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but okay. Some of the chatbots also cited Russian disinformation networks and Russian journalists or influencers that amplified Kremlin narratives, the research says. Similar previous research has also found 10 of the most popular chatbots mimicking Russian narratives. OpenAI spokesperson Kate Waters tells Wired in a statement that the company takes steps to prevent people from using ChatGPT to spread false or misleading information, including such content linked to state-backed actors, adding that these are long-standing issues that the company is attempting to address by improving its model and platforms. But in the meantime, you're screwed, I guess. The research in this report appears to reference search results drawn from the internet as a result of specific queries, which are clearly identified. It should not be confused with or represented as referencing responses purely generated by OpenAI's models outside of our search functionality, Waters said. We think this clarification is important, as this is not an issue of model manipulation. Neither Google nor DeepSeek responded to Wired's request for comment. An email from Elon Musk's XAI said, "Legacy media lies." Your mother, basically. In a written statement, a spokesperson for the Russian embassy in London said that it was, quote, not aware of the specific cases in this report that this report details, but that it opposes any attempts to censor or restrict content on political grounds, repression against Russian media outlets, I guess, and alternative points of view, deprives those who seek to form their own independent opinions of this opportunity, really, and undermines the very principle of free expression and pluralism that Western governments claim to uphold, the spokesperson wrote, but which they don't uphold, so okay. It is up to the relevant providers to block access to websites of outlets covered by sanctions, including subdomains or newly created domains, and up to the relevant national authorities to take any required accompanying regulatory measures, says a European Commission spokesperson. We're in contact with the national authorities on this matter. Lukasz Olejnik, I'm not certain of the pronunciation, doing my best. An independent consultant and visiting senior research fellow at King's College London's Department of War Studies says the findings validate and help contextualize how Russia is targeting the West's information ecosystem. As LLMs become the go-to reference tool, God, please, don't let it be that. From finding information to validating concepts, targeting and attacking this element of information infrastructure is a smart move, Olejnik says. From the EU and US point of view, this clearly highlights the danger. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, the Kremlin has moved to control and restrict the free flow of information inside Russia, banning independent media, increasing censorship, curtailing civil society groups, and building more state-controlled tech. At the same time, some of the country's disinformation networks have ramped up activity and adopted AI tools to supercharge production of fake images, videos, and websites. Across the ISD's findings, around 18% of all prompts, languages, and LLMs returned results linked to state-funded Russian media, sites linked to Russian intelligence agencies, or disinformation networks, the research says. So 18% of all such requests, I guess. Questions about peace talks between Russia and Ukraine led to more citations of state-attributed sources than questions about Ukrainian refugees, for instance. The ISD's research claims that the chatbots displayed confirmation bias. The more biased or malicious the query, the more frequently the chatbots would deliver Russian state-attributed information. The malicious queries delivered Russian state-attributed content a quarter of the time. Biased queries provided pro-Russian content 18% of the time, while neutral queries were just over 10%. In the research, malicious questions to chatbots demanded answers to back up existing opinion, whereas biased questions were leading but more open-ended. Of the 4 chatbots, which are all popular in Europe and collect data in real time, ChatGPT cited the most Russian sources and was the most influenced by biased queries, the research claims. Grok often linked to social media accounts that promoted and amplified Kremlin narratives, whereas DeepSeek sometimes produced large volumes of Russian state-attributed content. The researchers say Google's Gemini frequently displayed safety warnings next to the findings and had the best overall results out of the chatbots they tested. Multiple reports this year have claimed that the Russian disinformation network dubbed Pravda, has flooded the web and social media with millions of articles as part of an effort to poison LLMs and influence their outputs. Having Russian disinformation be parroted by Western AI models gives that false narrative a lot more visibility and authority, which further allows these bad actors to achieve their goals, says Mackenzie Sadeghi, a researcher and editor at media watchdog company NewsGuard, who has studied the Pravda network and Russian propaganda's influence on chatbots. Only 2 links in the ISD research could be connected back to Pravda network, the findings say. Sadeghi claims the Pravda network in particular is quick to launch new domains where propaganda is published, and says it can be particularly successful when there is little reliable information on a subject, the so-called data voids. Especially related to the conflict in Ukraine, they'll take a term where there's no existing reliable information about that particular topic or individual on the web and flood it with false information, Sadeghi says. It would require implementing continuous guardrails in order to really stay on top of that network. Chatbots may come under more pressure from the EU regulators as their user base grows. In fact, ChatGPT may already have hit the threshold to be designated a very large online platform. That's a real term, VLOP, VLOP. I don't know whether they actually say that or not, but VLOP by the EU once it hits 45 million average monthly users. So I guess it's getting close to that. This status triggers specific rules that tackle the risk of illegal content and their impact on fundamental rights, public security, and well-being on those sites. Even without qualifying for specific regulation, the ISD's Maristani de las Casas argues that there should be a consensus across companies of what sources should not be referenced or should not appear on those platforms when they are linked to foreign states known for disinformation. It could be providing users with further context, making sure that users understand the times that these domains have a conflict, and even understanding why they're sanctioned in the EU, he says. It's not only an issue of removal, it's an issue of contextualizing further to help the user understand the sources they're consuming, especially if these sources are appearing amongst trusted, verified sources. So, a little complex, but just letting you know, it's in general a warning not to accept the results of AI chatbots without at least having a few grains of salt on hand to accompany the consumption, let's say. All right. There are a number of other items. I'm going to scan and see, is there anything like super important news-wise which has got to be included in today's roundup? I don't think so in terms of breaking news, but a couple of things we want to, well, let's see, we'll definitely want to read through that tomorrow in detail. Well, I guess we should be adding this one. And why not? Pam Bondi, up to no good once again. Let's see, is this post on Blue Sky have anything to do with that? Or, oh no, that's a different story entirely. Okay, that means we can return to the AP report. Oh no, MSNBC report that Attorney General, supposedly, Pam Bondi, has a new investigatory, I guess in this case, investigatory target in mind. Thanks to the folks over at the Maddow blog bringing us this one. Steve Bannon gets his name called a second time on today's show. AG Pam Bondi announces investigation into another Trump foe, Nancy Pelosi. Why? Well, get a load of this. Pelosi suggested that those who break the law should be held accountable, not unlike what Pritzker said, though Pritzker ended up getting threatened by Stephen Miller. Well, Pelosi suggested that those who break the law should be held accountable, even if those people are federal agents. The Attorney General wasn't pleased, so I guess they're all on the same page there and trying to invent a cause of action against people who say maybe federal agents should follow the law. As this week got underway, that was last week, of course, Donald Trump's decision to deploy federal forces to San Francisco was effectively a foregone conclusion at the time. Then he decided by the end of the week to taco out of that one, at least for the time being. Though the president struggled to explain why exactly such a deployment was necessary, he nevertheless told Fox News' Maria Bartiromo, I always have trouble with her name, on Sunday, "We're going to go to San Francisco." And then there was something about tacos. As the week neared its end, those plans were shelved. According to a statement the Republican posted to his social media platform, that's Trump, he reversed course in part because San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie asked him to hold off in ways the president found satisfying, and in part because Trump had heard from some billionaire friends who persuaded him to delay his intended surge. His friends would probably be inconvenienced, or he worried that maybe they worried that their workers would be tear gassed or something along those lines. But somebody else made a good observation there, by the way, that since all of the legalities that the Trump administration argues are at stake when people bring them to court over these so-called surges, which is really a troubling use of the terminology that was used in Iraq for use in domestic affairs. But people saying, well, we owe the president deference in his decision. Just be aware that it's not necessarily the president driving these decisions. If I talked on the phone with some friends and they said to do something different, well, then is it really your discretion? I don't know. But it could be deliberative process. Anyway. But this isn't how federal policy making is supposed to work, especially when it comes to the deployments of armed personnel on American soil. But this is our life now, Steve Bannon puts it that way. Nevertheless, because officials still believed Trump's original rhetoric, they started making plans accordingly. With this in mind, the New York Times reported that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested on Wednesday that local police could arrest federal agents if they break California law while conducting immigration raids that were expected last week, in the San Francisco Bay Area. With Border Patrol agents due to arrive, Ms. Pelosi issued a stark warning along with Kevin Mullen, a fellow Democratic representative who represents the small slice of San Francisco that Ms. Pelosi doesn't. The message was certainly provocative, but it was hardly scandalous. Pelosi made the case that those who break the law should be held accountable, even if those people are federal immigration agents. Evidently, Attorney General Pam Bondi wasn't pleased. She is quoted here in this ASIN post as saying, Bondi talking to Jesse Waters, it looks like, Pelosi got a letter today. We told them, preserve your emails. That's her favorite line. If you are telling people to arrest our ICE officers, you cannot do that. You are impeding an investigation and we will charge them. We are going to investigate her. Okay. But she loves to preserve your emails. That's like, that's me making a legal threat. I'm all legal. Check me out. If you are telling people to arrest our ICE officers, our federal agents, you cannot do that. You are impeding an investigation and we will charge them, the Florida Republican told Fox News. We just saw that. Bondi added, you've got Pelosi out there saying to obstruct their investigation. You can't do it. And we're going to investigate her now. To the extent that reality is relevant to the debate, the House Speaker Emerita didn't tell anyone to arrest ICE agents or obstruct any investigations. Rather, the California Democrat endorsed the arrests of those who break state and local laws, which sort of seems like the statement a responsible attorney general would endorse. Nevertheless, according to Bondi, the Justice Department has launched yet another investigation into yet another Democratic foe of Donald Trump. And what's more, it's not just Bondi. Another former Trump defense lawyer, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, has also threatened to prosecute California officials who support arresting federal immigration agents. Pelosi has not yet publicly responded, at least at the time of this writing, to the Justice Department's posturing. Watch this space. We'll have to do so and see whether Steve Bannon picks up any more about that issue. All right, just wanted to let you know that Pelosi was under the gun, too. You probably would have guessed that. Just randomly at this point. The other issue that I had checked things out on was, I guess since we mentioned Melania earlier in the show, we'll just try and throw this one in here without reading the whole article. We won't have time for that. But Helen Kennedy happened to pick up on an AP News report that author Michael Wolff is now suing Melania Trump. This is interesting. As she puts it, Wolff is using Trump tactics against them, suing the Trumps for threatening to sue him for $1 billion unless he apologizes and pays them damages. Okay. Her quick summary of what the AP has to report is that Wolff announced his intention, just a pull quote from them, Wolff announced his intention to use the legal action to put the president and his wife under oath to answer specific questions about Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. That'll be a hell of a situation, right? So if you're gonna threaten to sue Michael Wolff, Michael Wolff's gonna sue you over the threat and wants to depose you without information about Jeffrey Epstein, just to, maybe keep that in the news. Might be of interest to some people. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with yet more of the developments. Maybe the president will make things worse from Japan.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Up next, of course, Justice Putnam with West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Here's what he's got on tap. Trump's trip to Asia got ruined. Oh, dear. As he learned that Democrats have a plan to stop his attempt to rig the midterm elections, and there is not much he can do to stop it now. That does sound interesting. I'd like to stay tuned like you should and hear what that's all about. We'll see you tomorrow.